People in prison who speak to themselves in third person. That's right. That's what we're going to talk about today. In jail and in prison, I've noticed that there are a lot more people that you run into that speak about themselves and refer to themselves in third person than there are in open society, in the free world, as they like to call it. Incarcerated and in prison, you're going to run into people who like to talk about themselves in third person. And today, I'm just going to briefly mention two people who crossed my mind that I remember being incarcerated with that spoke to themselves in third person. The first one is Wody. That's right, Wody. Let me tell you about Wody. Wody was the type of guy who was always and constantly the perpetual victim. This dude was the epitome of victim. Everything in his life was always a sad story about somehow or another. Even if he was wrong, he was still the victim. This dude did not take no responsibility in life, and you could see it. His life played out like a perpetual victim on TV that constantly cries and complains and never gets their ways. You see it all the time nowadays. Wody was ahead of his time before what we have today called cancel culture, and where people can complain about everything and they're going to get an audience. Wody was way ahead of that. You know what I mean? Wody will come to people in the canteen line and he'd walk up and down the canteen line. He'd start from the front and work his way to the back. He wasn't stupid. He wouldn't start from the back and work his way to the front of the canteen line because he didn't want to miss nobody. Now, of course, Wody wasn't no dumb idiot neither. Wody had common sense, so Wody knew certain people he wasn't going to get nothing from, because some of them dudes just knew how to handle Wody. They'd be like, man, Wody better get out of my face, man. You know what I mean? Or much worse than that, And so Wody would kind of skip them, but he was always looking, especially he'd be looking for somebody new on the compound that really didn't know him, so he can try to, pull on their heartstrings to try to do something for him. He'd be like, man, Wody will just take a cigarette. He don't need a pack. If somebody could just give Wody a cigarette. And you look and you're like, man, this dude again? Just the last canteen call, he was doing this stuff again. They ain't know again. Wody ain't going to miss a canteen time. He's going to do it every single time. He's going to be in the canteen line talking about, if Wody can only get a cigarette, somebody please help Wody out. Well, Wody got to the point to where he would start with the higher stuff, Snickers bar, a pack of cigarettes. He'll work his way down to a half a pack of cigarettes. He'll take whatever you can give him, a cigarette, half of the cigarette that you smoking, if you could just share it with him. But he made himself all the way down to the end of the line, and he figured out the cheapest thing on the canteen sheet. If he could just hustle enough of the cheapest things. They had something on this one compound I was on, and the cheapest thing on the canteen sheet was a Chico stick. That's right, a Chico stick. And it was like 25 cents. It was something super, super cheap. And Wody would go up and down that line, and if he realized he wasn't going to be able to get anything from anybody that was expensive, such as a pack of cigarettes that can be $5 or something like that, more, I did my time back in the days, or a soup, or, a bag of coffee, he would work his way all the way down to a Chico stick. He'd be like, man, if Wody can get a Chico stick, man, a Chico stick is only 25 cents. For a poor person like Wody, man, I'm suffering, man. Dang, y'all saw that. Y'all saw what we had for child. Man, I'm dying, man. If only can Wody get a Chico stick. And so dudes would feel bad for Wody. I seen dudes, where Wody, everybody, there's a lot of people in jail. And so a lot of young cats come in there and they get, their heartstring gets pulled on, or they feel bad for somebody, or they might just get played, and Wody wasn't the type of guy you would be really scared of. He wasn't a demeaning or threatening individual. He wasn't somebody who was going to poke his chest out and just take from you. He played on that pauper mentality, like I'm poor me, give me something, so people would give him stuff. But Wody would get things, I remember I gave Wody, some things a few times, I worked in the kitchen. I was a kitchen clerk, so a lot of people will come up to me. I tossed Wody a bone or two here and there, But even in jail, man, you can't live your life giving people stuff all the time, especially if your family's sending you stuff. They're sending that in there to take care of you. Now, you look out for your people, the people you chop it up with, the people you break bread with. You always look out for those people because if something kicks off, those are the people who are going to go side by side with you, So you're not just going, you're not just going to give to somebody who is trying to play you, for weak. But, I would toss Wody a bone or two, but Wody, he never stopped. Would always be like, man, with them Chico sticks. If Wody could only get a Chico stick. And you know what? Wody probably had a locker full of Chico sticks. I don't know. You know what I mean? He'd probably take 4 or 5 Chico sticks and trade it in for a shot of coffee or a cigarette, you know? It was crazy times. You know, so that was Wody, who always referred to himself in third person every time he spoke. Wody got to go to the bathroom. Wody got to go. Wody got to make it to chow. Man, Wody looking for an extra breakfast tray. Man, Wody ain't got nobody to call on the phone. He played the lottery. That's right. He get on the phone and play the lottery. But anyway, so there was another dude, and this dude was something else, man. This was a more big, demeaning type individual. When I mean was big, this dude was like about 6'4", 6'5", big, not fat, excellent shape. You know, he had the 6-pack. One of them dudes who was born out his mother's womb with a 6-pack. One of those dudes. You know what I'm talking about. You like, they don't have to work out. They just naturally big. You like, the dude don't really have to work out, but he still got guns. You know, the dude's still in shape. You know, so when he works out, it's just to the next level. This is one of them dudes, you know. And he referred to himself as Shaka. That's right, Shaka. That was his name, or Shakalaka. And every time Shaka spoke, he'd be like, Shaka, time for Shaka to go to work. Time for Shaka to go to work. I think it was like in the kitchen, because I was a kitchen clerk. I think he was a kitchen baker or a cook. He was one or the other. And he'd be like, Shaka needs some sugar to bake the bread. And I'd be like, yeah, I got you, Shaka, bro. You know what I mean? Hook up the sugar, give it to him. Because like I said, I was a clerk. I issued out the portions. You know, Shaka get that sugar. You know, of course, you know. So in prison and in jail, there's always this thing, you know. So if the bread required, you know, a couple things like this, you know, 3-4 gallons of sugar to make enough bread for the whole prison, you give him 5 or 6, you know, because you were looking out, because he was going to chop his up and sell it on the compound. That's a whole nother thing. That's just the way it worked in jail. So, you know, but he always referred to himself in third person. But I'm going to go back in time. The funniest thing I ever heard from Shaka was, I don't know if you remember Miss Cleo. She was a psychic advisor, crazy, demonic lady, in my opinion. But she used to read tarot cards, palm readings, crystal ball readings, stuff that I actually think is stupid and evil, and I hate it, and it's dumb. It's a waste of money. But anyway, her commercials were big back in the 90s, and she would come on the TV and she'd be like, call Miss Cleo. Miss Cleo will help you find the love interest of your life. Miss Cleo knows exactly the woman you're looking for. Miss Cleo will help you find the man of your dreams. If only I can read your palm. Give me a call. 1-800 number at the bottom. You know, you got to pay, you know, $10 per minute or something crazy like that. And you never spoke to Miss Cleo. You're speaking to somebody else or some pre-recorded message. But anyway, she would get up in there, and whenever those Miss Cleo commercials came on, Shaka was on it. You know, he was going to the TV. He was in love with Miss Cleo. And so he would have this thing all day long. He'd talk about, one day, Shakalaka gonna marry Miss Cleo. And you're like, what? This dude crazy, man. So you know you got nothing but time in jail, so you find ways to occupy your mind. So for Shaka, it was Miss Cleo. And he said, yeah, one day Shakalaka gonna have babies with Miss Cleo. Man, I'm like, man, he gonna have babies with Miss Cleo, man. Shaka crazy, you know? And even one day, another dude I know who was from New Orleans, he was coming down the walk and he was laughing. I said, what happened, bro? He said, man, Shaka crazy. I said, what happened, bro? You know, you never think somebody will do stuff. He said, man, we was, because they woke up in the morning, this dude stuttered. You know, there's another, I tell some stories about this dude. This dude was a cool dude. His name was Smokey, solid dude, man. I liked him, friend of mine. But we were cool. And Smokey had me laughing. Smokey said, man, we were going to the kitchen, because we would, if you worked in the kitchen and you worked on the morning shift, you had to get up like at 3 a.m. to start that food cooking. That way, when child was ready, you had to cook it for hours, get everything ready, and then serve the compound. So they were walking. The moon's still out. Well, Shaka was walking, and Smokey must have been walking behind him, and they were heading to the kitchen, and the moon was out. And I said, what happened, Smokey? He said, man, Shaka stopped in the walk. He looked up at the moon, and he went, ow, 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 ow. He said, yeah, he howled like a wolf. And he said, it's a full moon. Shaka see a full moon. And Smokey said, man, he stuttered. I just started laughing. He said, man, Shaka crazy. Like, man, I'm in jail, man. They got some wild people in jail, some wild stories, you know. But anyway, Shaka was going to marry Miss Cleo and have children with Miss Cleo. I don't never know what happened to Shaka, but he was actually a cool guy. You know, he was a decent dude. He wasn't in there doing nothing too crazy. You know what I mean? He was just doing his time like most people want to do. But Shaka, and Wody spoke to themselves in third person. Two of many people I met in prison who like to speak to themselves in third person. Maybe it's something that psychologists should study. Why do people who are incarcerated or convicts or gangsters, thugs, whatever, criminals, like to speak to themselves in third person when they go to prison? And my thing that I never quite figured out now that I'm older and, been in some, long time, some decades since I've basically been out of prison, I look back and I think to myself, I wonder if Shaka or Wody spoke to themselves as third person when they were in society or when they got back in society. I feels like something that they probably would have had to correct in order to have a, decent shot in life and society. Anyway, that's just two interesting stories of people speaking in third person in prison. Why don't you take a moment to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and, just support somebody who's trying to get this new Southern crime and incarceration channel going. And thanks for watching. Stay free.